Hello, I'm Ryan Watson, partner at Upsourced Accounting, and this is Escaping Busy Season. Today is our third installment of Escaping Busy Season, which is a series by Upsourced where we interview recent Big Four and public accounting expats. And we talk to them about what their experiences were like in public accounting, what ultimately led them to leave, what they were looking for when they left, and what was waiting for them on the other side. Today, we interview Abbey Stechler, controller at Upsourced, and this was a great one. Have a listen. All right, well, so maybe a first easy question is what were you doing before you started Upsourced?
Yep. So I was working at PwC
Okay.
and I was a senior associate at that point. So I was working as an auditor basically on banking and capital markets clients with a smaller client in like the real estate fund
Okay.
environment. Yeah.
And remind me again, where'd you go to school?
I went to Ohio State.
Okay, Ohio State. And so then what made you choose audit?
Um, as an accounting major, I kind of everybody was like, you should go Big Four, you should go Big Four. That's like where the most opportunities are.
Yeah.
And I knew tax wasn't really my route, so then that
Yeah,
led
it's
me.
what you were interested in. Yeah.
So,
I think all auditors are a process of elimination, really. We didn't like one thing. Okay.
for sure.
Okay. And so what were busy seasons like?
Um,
Big Four can be.
they can be rough, yeah. Mine luckily weren't awful.
Okay.
It is not like surprisingly not necessarily the reason I left.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
More so just like by auditing, I realized this might not be what I wanted to do. Yeah, because I was on a team that was pretty like we knew what we were doing. It was the same routine year after year, so
Okay.
it wasn't too much change.
Okay.
So busy seasons weren't too tough compared to some other horror stories.
Okay.
But the smaller client that I was on, that was more of a something that we had to figure out a little more messy. So
Okay.
that was a rougher busy season, and that was
Okay.
after the larger client that I was on.
Okay. Okay.
So that was more strenuous and later nights, more work.
Okay. So you mentioned it wasn't, which is interesting because I feel like, and I talk to people all week about their current situations, and the number one reason I hear people looking to potentially leave is because of the hours are crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds like for you that wasn't the primary thing. So I guess my question would be, so it sounds like maybe it was the audit that you didn't love. So what was it? And specifically, like, when do you feel like you had the realization that is, okay, I gotta do something else?
Yeah. So the reason that I left was what I just realized auditing wasn't for me, and I didn't like going to client meetings and feeling anxious because I felt like the client didn't want me there. Like no one really likes when the auditors come. They have to like swerve from their normal routine and answer our questions, give us our support, and I didn't like the feeling of being like a burden to them.
Yeah.
And that just gave me anxiety. I didn't enjoy it. I would always like just avoid client meetings and not want to go to them and like be
Interesting.
like it just I didn't enjoy that. And that's a lot of the job of being an auditor. It's like going and talking to the client. That's the entire job.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to feel that way, and I wanted to if I was working with clients, I wanted to work with them because they wanted to work with me, and like
Yeah.
it was a mutual relationship. So that was like really the catalyst for me realizing this isn't what I want to do, because as I moved further up in the company, it was more client facing work,
Sure.
and I felt more of that anxiety along with it. So
Yeah.
I liked what I was doing working with clients. I just
Right.
wanted to do it in a different capacity.
Well, yeah, audits often billed as client service, but it's kind of a misnomer, right? Because it's not, it's the client service, it's client facing, as you described it. That is correct. But client service implies some sort of relationship. But in audit, it's like a little more adversarial than it is. That was one of the things I didn't like about it either. So okay, at the point where you decided, okay, this is creating anxiety for me, and I'm not enjoying this. Did you seek advice from anyone? Like, did you get any kind of advice about how to think about leaving? And as you were thinking about leaving, like, what was on your radar?
Yeah. So I actually reached out to somebody at Upsource
Oh.
AC.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, that's funny. I forget this. Yeah.
So I worked with her at PwC.
Okay.
And then I knew that she was happy with the role that she switched to. So I reached out to her, kind of asked her how she went about the process of leaving and finding a new job. I knew that I wanted to do something a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
I like people who think creatively, even though
Yeah.
it's not something like I'm super strong at. It's
Yeah.
something that I like admire about people and wish I was more like. So I think I wanted to go into something that had more of a creative aspect to it.
Okay.
Not that what we're doing is necessarily creative, but
Yeah.
the advisory side of it, you do have to get creative and think of things to help the clients. So I knew that I kind of wanted to go that route. I wanted to be at a smaller company just because I felt like there was less of a rigid path upward in terms of trajectory and like moving along in my career. It wasn't so strict and standardized like a big four big firm is, because they kind of have like a set number of years before you move up to the next position. And yes, you
For better or for worse.
but
Yeah.
so I wanted something that like what I was doing and what I was contributing was recognized and would just help me evolve in my career.
So, it sounds like you had a little bit of an inside track to what this might look like because you had a friend, Casey, who worked here. I'm curious, even still, like, I'm curious what your perception of advisory was like sitting at your role in Big Four, and like how has that compared to what it's actually been, or what has been the greatest surprise or the biggest difference, the thing that was, you didn't expect?
Yeah. So my idea of what it would be was more of like a broad mindset, not so in the details of like, are they doing this correctly? Is this compliant with GAAP? Is this compliant with the PCAOB? And more like, how can I help these business owners and how can I advise them to like make their company better, help them grow it? And I liked that aspect of it of like, oh, I can like truly help these people and like see the impact of what I'm telling them to do and how I'm advising them. So that's kind of like the idea of what I have of it was. And it is a lot like I imagined it and pictured it being. It's great because at Upsource, like you get put into it so quick. You're facing the client really fast, but like the senior controllers put like a lot of faith in you and like help you grow and build like that client facing confidence that you kind of need. So I don't know. Advisory is like,
Well, so as you're talking, it kind of reminds me of this thing that we do, right? Which is we bring Big Four or public accountant auditors, and as you say, like we put them in front of these agencies and we say, figure out how to help them, right? And that looks a lot of different ways. And obviously you never did that before, right? Like obviously that wasn't your job, agencies or otherwise. I'm genuinely curious, like how have you found that learning curve? Like what has it been like to try to say like, okay, I got to understand like what makes this business tick and how do they improve? What's that been like? How have you figured that out? Like, just I'm curious how the evolution has been.
Yeah, the learning curve was definitely a lot because with auditing, like you have set standards that you're more or less testing against. Like what's right, what's wrong, like what you're looking for. Whereas with agencies, every agency is so different. So you have to advise everyone differently, and you have to learn like the client's demeanor and like what they're like, and you have to kind of talk and advise so that they'll understand you and like take your advice and everything. So it's definitely been a learning curve to not like necessarily have like a black and white answer. Like with auditing, it's more black and white.
There's an objective truth.
Exactly. And like with this, it's more you have to have confidence of like what you're telling them and like just learn to trust like what the data that you have. And obviously I lean a lot on the senior controllers just for advice as well as I'm learning the role and like getting better at being a controller. But it was definitely a learning curve because you just have to have more of that like broad forward thinking mindset where auditing is more looking at the past and what happened. Now this is more like taking in a financial mindset too. Rather than just accounting. But I like that because I feel like I like have learned a lot about just businesses in general, how to run a business. And I feel like I'm more in the weeds of that and understand it and understand like forecasting a lot more than I ever did as an auditor.
Well, so you mentioned a couple things that we do, right? Forecasting being one of those things. I think for a lot of folks, advisory sounds really interesting and exciting, and it touches all these sort of broad areas, but also it is it's intangible. It's not very concrete. Like, what is it exactly? What does your day look like? So it'd be interesting. The question I'll ask you is like, what does a day look like, or what does your average week look like? What are you actually doing?
Yeah. It varies.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's definitely it changes week to week, but which I like. I
yeah,
like that it's not rigid
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
always changing. Um, it it's kind of like a monthly cadence, I would say, based on what I'm doing. So like
yeah,
the first few weeks of the month, I'll be kind of build like building out the forecast, making sure that's right. Like doing some of the stuff that at the end of the month when I'm busier with client meetings, I can't necessarily get to. So the beginning of the month is a lot of like getting invoices out, recognizing revenue,
yeah,
obviously attending to any of the client's needs because there will just be like ad hoc things that come up that you
yeah,
have to deal with. So just dealing with those as they come in.
yeah,
Like I said, like making sure the budget and the utilization reports are all built out and accurate. So when it gets busier at the end of the month, I know that
yeah,
that's right and I'm doing it correctly. And then towards the middle to the end of the month is when we start finalizing the close docs. So then I'll start reviewing those, putting it into the financial model, like the actuals results, building out the advisory reports that we meet with the client to go over.
yeah,
And then every week you're meeting with the clients. A lot of the clients we meet like bi-monthly.
yeah.
So we'll meet with them at the beginning and then the end of the month, and we'll just go through what we're seeing, how they're feeling, how the team's feeling, what they need our help with, and what they would like to focus on, like in our monthly meeting.
Yeah.
So doing all of that. So the beginning of the month's more not admin like things, but more like in the weeds, getting
Yeah.
the model, getting our
Ready, set
internal
up. Yeah.
schedules set up. End of the month is more client facing, where we're going over the monthly financials and we're talking through them about any like concerns or issues or things that they have that they want to discuss with us.
And so in that, how long have you how long have you been with us now?
13 months.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I remember your first year anniversary and thinking, holy cow, how is that possible? But I imagine you've had an opportunity to touch a number of clients in many positive ways. Can you think of any moments, achievements, I don't know, things that have made you the proudest, things that you look back on and think like, oh, that was cool?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
There was one client in particular that when we joined, they were running out of cash. Like they didn't have any projects coming in the door. We were unsure if they would make it to the end of the year.
Yeah.
They had to pull from like a line of credit every time to run payroll.
Yeah.
And it was stressful. It was
Yeah.
stressful on us just to know what they were going through and giving them advice, but being at a point where we're not sure if the advice is even gonna save them at that point.
Yeah.
And then at the turn of the year, they signed a few more clients.
Yeah.
They were able to pay off the line of credit.
Yeah.
They're starting to pay back their credit card debt.
Yeah.
They're profitable for the first time in 12 months.
That's very cool.
And they've had a whole quarter of profitability now, and they have cash runway through longer than they've seen in a year.
Yeah.
So seeing that and like what they've been able to achieve with our advisory services and like working side by side and seeing them come out of that was super rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously like I was in Big Four audit like you, like these are incredibly large, multi-billion dollar organizations that are like the cause and effect between doing something well and putting food on the table is, many, many stages. And here it's a very direct relationship. So much more fulfilling that way. All right, last question. Okay, if you were to look back your public accountant self, the one who was anxious about having these adversarial client relationships, and you could give that person like one bit of career advice or like what, if you were to give them any kind of advice on what you would do differently, how would you approach that job? How would you think about the next job or whatever, any kind of advice, what would you give them?
I just say go for it. Like listen to your gut. Like when you're ready to leave, like when you've had enough and when you're ready for something new. So just listen to your gut and like talk to the people around you. Like look at all the opportunities out there. Don't be hasty. Like definitely think of what you like and what interests you, and then find something that is in that industry or but also that's what I did. Like I wanted something more creative. I wanted a smaller company. So that's what I looked for, but still to use my degree, which was accounting. So I'd say just listen to your gut. Like, what you like, when it's time to go, and like any jump you make, you're going to learn something from it.
Totally.
So yeah, and definitely leverage your network.
Awesome.
That's definitely how I found this.
Love it. Cool.
Yes.
Well, Abby, thank you so much. I appreciate it.